In 1903, in the remote mountains of Oregon, two children were born. Identical faces, identical DNA. But what happened next would create something that shouldn't exist. By 1920, they had married each other. By 1945, 5 generations lived in one house. All of them related by blood in ways science couldn't explain. The Oates family didn't just break the law, they rewrote biology itself. Welcome to dark true crime, where history's darkest secrets meet forensic investigation. Before we begin, if you're new here, subscribe and turn on notifications. This story will disturb you, but it needs to be told. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments. This is the story of Elijah and Eliza Oates, born on the same day, raised in isolation, and eventually lovers, spouses, and the foundation of a bloodline that would span 100 years. Let's go back to where it started, in the winter of 1903, somewhere in the Cascade Mountains of Oregon. A woman named Martha Oates gave birth to twins, Elijah and Eliza. Their father, Samuel Oates, was a logger who had moved his family deep into the wilderness to escape something, the law, debts. We'll never know for certain. But what we do know is this: the Oates family lived 40 miles from the nearest town. No neighbors, no church, no school, just mountains, trees, and silence. Martha Oates died when the twins were 7 years old. Influenza took her in the winter of 1910. Samuel buried her behind the house and never spoke of her again. From that moment, Elijah and Eliza were truly alone with their father. Samuel Oates was not a kind man. He believed the outside world was corrupt, evil, and dangerous. He told his children that everyone beyond the mountains would hurt them, use them, destroy them. He taught them to hunt, to farm, to survive. But he taught them nothing about the world beyond their property line. By 1915, Samuel was dying lung disease from years of logging. He knew he wouldn't survive another winter. And before he died, Samuel Oates made a decision that would echo through 5 generations. He told his children, "You must stay together. You cannot let outsiders into this family. You are all you have." Elijah was 12 years old. Eliza was 12 years old, and they understood exactly what their father meant. Samuel Oates died in December 1915. For the next 5 years, Elijah and Eliza lived alone in that mountain cabin. They had no concept of the outside world, no understanding of social norms, no education beyond what their father had taught them. To them, marriage wasn't about love or religion or law. It was survival. In the spring of 1920, when they were both 17 years old, Elijah and Eliza performed their own wedding ceremony. No priest, no witnesses, just 2 people promising to stay together. That same year, Eliza became pregnant. Their first child, Sarah, was born in January 1921. She had pale skin, blonde hair like her parents, and something else. A slight tremor in her left hand, a weakness in her legs. The first sign of what happens when identical DNA combines. But Elijah and Eliza didn't understand genetics. They didn't know what they had done. They only knew they had a daughter. And over the next 15 years, they would have 7 more children. Before we continue, let's understand what was happening here from a scientific perspective. When identical twins reproduce together, their children are not just siblings. Genetically, they're closer to clones. Identical twins share 100% of their DNA. So, when they have children, those children receive DNA from what is essentially the same genetic source. This creates something called genetic load, a massive increase in the probability of recessive genetic disorders. In normal reproduction, harmful genes are usually masked by healthy versions from the other parent. But when both parents are genetically identical, there's no masking effect. The result? Physical deformities, cognitive disabilities, shortened lifespans. Dr. Robert Green, a geneticist at Brigham and Women's Hospital, explains it this way. Inbreeding depression is real and documented. With each generation, the genetic problems compound. By the third or fourth generation, you're looking at severe developmental issues in nearly 80% of offspring. The Oates family would prove this theory in the most tragic way possible. By 1935, Elijah and Eliza had 8 children. Sarah, the oldest, was now 14, and following the only example she had ever known, she married her brother Jacob, who was 12. Within 2 years, Sarah was pregnant. The child, a boy named Thomas, was born with severe physical disabilities. His spine was curved, his jaw misaligned. He would never walk properly, but the family didn't stop. Because by this point, the Oates clan had developed their own internal culture, their own rules, their own reality. They believed they were protecting their bloodline, keeping it pure, keeping it strong. In their isolation, they had created a belief system where outsiders were the enemy and family was everything. By 1945, there were 23 people living in that mountain compound, 3 generations, all related by blood in ways that violated every law of nature and society. And here's what makes this even more disturbing. No one knew they existed. For 40 years, the Oates family had lived in complete isolation. They grew their own food, they hunted, they made their own clothes. And when children were born with severe disabilities, which happened frequently, they were simply cared for within the family until they died, which was often before age 10. By some estimates, as many as 15 children died in that compound between 1920 and 1950. But there are no records, no death certificates, no graves that anyone ever found. Just stories passed down by the few who eventually escaped. The Oates family remained hidden until 1953. That's when a forest ranger named Thomas Whitmore was surveying land for the U.S. Forestry Service and stumbled upon the compound. What he found horrified him. A cluster of primitive cabins, dozens of people, many with visible deformities, children who couldn't speak, adults who ran when they saw him approaching. Whitmore immediately contacted local authorities. When police arrived, they found 31 people living in conditions that defied belief. Multiple generations, all living together. Many of the youngest children had never seen an outsider before in their lives. DNA testing didn't exist in 1953, but doctors who examined the family immediately recognized the signs of severe inbreeding. Genetic disorders were present in almost every member of the youngest generation. The state of Oregon removed 18 children from the compound immediately. Elijah Oates, now 50 years old, and Eliza Oates, also 50, were arrested and charged with child endangerment, incest, and failure to register births. They served 3 years in prison. The children were placed in foster care and group homes. Most struggled to adapt to modern society. Some never did, and the Oates compound? It was burned to the ground by authorities in 1954. Everything destroyed. The cabins, the belongings, any evidence of what had happened there. Oregon wanted to forget. Today, descendants of the Oates family still live in Oregon. Most of them changed their names. Most refuse to speak about their ancestry. But genetic studies of inbred populations continue to reference the Oates case as one of the most extreme examples of multi-generational consanguinity in American history. The children who were rescued, some went on to live relatively normal lives. They received education. They married outside the family. They broke the cycle. But the damage that was done, physically, mentally, emotionally, never fully healed. This case raises an uncomfortable question. When people are raised in complete isolation, with no understanding of the world beyond what they're taught, can we hold them responsible for violating norms they never knew existed? The Oates family believed they were protecting themselves. In their minds, they were the normal ones, and everyone else was the threat. It's a reminder that isolation doesn't just separate us from society, it separates us from reality itself. The Oates family story is one of the most disturbing cases of genetic isolation ever documented in America, but it's not the only one. In our next video, we'll investigate another family, another mountain, another secret that stayed hidden for decades. What are your thoughts on the Oates case? Could this happen today? Drop your comments below. If you learned something new, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that history tried to bury.